also went to work in a clothing store, but within a year was teaching school. And interesting, the principal of the school was a Dickinson graduate. This was in Homestead, Florida. And I went to see him because I was told there was an opening. And of course, it was that Dickinson connection that immediately gave him, I think, a sense of confidence that I could do the job. The really incredible experience there was that of going through the desegregation of Florida schools under federal court order, and this was in 1968, and that was a life-changing experience. I felt constrained in the schools, and I wanted to do more and experience more in this community, and so ultimately we had 2 children. And then when I went back to work, I wanted to get involved in the community. And again, was an organization, it was the League of Women Voters in those days, that gave me the avenue to learn about the community. And my interest had always been government and politics, and so I indeed became involved that way.
I graduated from college. 2 months later, I set off to law school. And for those of you who are thinking of law school, or any graduate school, I would recommend these days to take a couple of years in between. But I went right up to law school in Ohio. I graduated in 3 years, passed the bar, started a very small firm in Columbus, Ohio. I stayed there for about a year, and then I was given a wonderful opportunity to work for Warner Communications in their cable television subsidiary, which was in Columbus. So I spent almost 6 years there. I was there through the Paramount attempted takeover. I was there and helped put the Time Warner merger together, which was fascinating. And I spent 2 years doing nothing but buying cable television subsidiaries, flying around the United States in the private Warner or Time Warner jet. It was interesting because I was the only female in the due diligence group, and I was the person when I got on the private airplane and there were sandwiches and drinks and everything, it was just expected of me that I would take the plastic off the sandwiches and I would get the Cokes out. But I learned a lesson from that, and that's a lesson that I use, or the advice that I give myself every day now. I took great advantage of that because I wasn't offended by that. I went ahead and took the plastic off the sandwiches, but I served myself first.
So I always enjoyed reading the Wall Street Journal. I know that sounds strange, but I was a senior in college reading the Wall Street Journal. Everyone else was reading the New York Times, and I read the Wall Street Journal. So I thought, upon graduation, I would like to pursue a career in finance. And so I went to interview, and just like Linda's experience, I was told that I would be qualified for an entry-level position. That was code for I would be an assistant. And I approached our manager and said, I don't understand why I am not qualified to pursue this. And he said, well, sure, you can pursue it. Here are the books you'll need to read. Here are the things you need to do in order to pursue your career and your licenses. And basically, he handed me the book of the New York Stock Exchange. He said, here's the book. And I looked at that and I said, all right, I'm going to read the book. Well, I also got a little bit lucky in the sense of I found another friend who was a male who shared with me a lot of the information that he had gotten directly from the firm, and we both passed our tests and were able to then become financial advisors. I would walk into a room of literally 100 financial advisors, and I know I would count, and I would look and I would say, there's me and one other woman out of 100, or 2 out of 100. And I would wonder why that was. And then I would hear comments like, well, when I find a good woman, I'll hire her. People thought that was okay to actually say.
I became a straight-A student, realizing that the only way I could go to college was on full tuition scholarship. I was not born in a family with money. My mother was a German immigrant with an 8th grade education. She taught me a lot of things, and she was well-read. So then, 12th grade, I was ready to graduate. My stepfather left home. And I thought, well, there goes college. I was the only person in my family that ever thought of going to college. And I had to work, because I had a mother and a sister to support, no car, so the obvious college was Dickinson. I put all my eggs in one basket, and lo and behold, Dickinson accepted me with a 4-year full tuition scholarship and a job. And in November, while I was at the Bank of Delaware, I got a phone call from one of the lawyers that I had served the preceptorship, and he said, "Sylvia, I've lost all my partners. They're deceased. I need help. Will you come?" Didn't take me long to leave the Bank of Delaware and come to Carlisle and try to practice law. So I practiced law. I was a part-time professor at the law school. I served as public defender, chief public defender. And then there was a vacancy on the Cumberland County Court. And I was appointed by the governor to fill that position. Unfortunately, I had to run a year later to retain that position. And let me say this, and you'll know what happened in the election. I'm a Democrat in Cumberland County.